Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So it's May 1st, it's the first of the month here, and yeah, now we're closer obviously to the Walking Dead Daryl Dixon's premiere date, and that show should be out in the next like 2 or 3 months. I mean, they took a little bit of a break here. It's been a month since The Ones Who Live did end, so I think that in terms of promotion and all that it's going to be starting a lot this month. The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon will be having a premiere next month. I don't know when the date is exactly, but I know it's in June. And it's going to be at some sort of festival. So obviously the first episode will be shown then, and we'll get a lot of early reviews and all of that then. But I don't think that's when the premiere of this episode is going to be. It's not going to be like a week or two later, just because if you look at the show, they're not really promoting it yet, right? Like they usually start promoting it 2 or 3 months beforehand, usually about 3 months beforehand, where they start to really promote it a lot. And it's already May. So, like there's literally no talk of Daryl Dixon. There's no, artwork or anything like that out there. So just comparing it to the last 3 shows, like Dead City, Daryl Dixon season 1, and then The Ones Who Live, right? Like if you just look at how they promoted those shows, it was usually a few months beforehand, and like 30 to 40 days, I think it was like closer to 40 days around there is when they released the full official trailer, for the show. And so we're so far away from that at this point. That's why I think that next month we could get the trailer, and then it'll be 30 or 40 days away from the release date, which might be early August or something like that. That's sort of my guess right now, but yeah, obviously we'll have to wait and see. So anyways, I do want to answer you guys' questions regarding the Walking Dead universe. I think there's also some follow-up questions as well here, so I will answer some of those questions. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. And also thank you so much to everyone who posted questions. Again, if you do want to take part in these Q&As, definitely go and join the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. The link for that will be in the description of this video. I do Q&As every single week, and yeah, I'm back to doing videos every single day now. And yeah, I'm ready for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and also Dead City season 2, which, in terms of the filming and all that, I've been sort of following along with all of that, and it looks really, really incredible. But anyways, let's get into the first question here. So Q&A, do you think the ravine in the Tales episode set 35 years in the future, or I guess 35 years into the apocalypse, was created by the CRM / Rick as a solution to the 14-year problem? Well, I know that, that episode is supposed to mean a lot. I remember Gimple talking about that episode a long, long time ago, or I guess before the episode came out. And he was saying that the episode would have some sort of importance, obviously at some point in the future, and that it was definitely something that, teased the future of The Walking Dead. And I think it was something that was sort of set up with some of the CRM stuff. Like there was a lot of cryptic messaging there. And when you look at what that episode actually had in it, it's been a while and I've only watched it the one time, maybe 2 times, but it's I don't remember too much from it, but I do remember that there was an area called like the Dead Sector, and I believe it was around Georgia, or it was somewhere around there. It was somewhere like on that side of the United States anyways. And basically it was like, I think that there was a whole region that was sort of, I guess, protected from sort of a lot of people. And I think some people were surviving there. A lot of animals were thriving there. And basically I do think that it's possible that this was sort of a response. I know there were some scientists working on some stuff there, doing studies and all that. So obviously I think that there's a lot more going on there. And I think that could be related to what Beale said about the 14-year plan and the echelon briefing, right? Because I think that if you're Scott Gimple at this point, I do think that you need to look at what happened there, and also just sort of look at, the fan disappointment regarding the CRM arc and make it matter a little bit more. Because, if you just ignore that whole 14-year thing that he said, literally ignore all of it, then it just makes it all seem very ridiculous. And yes, if that 14-year plan, or not plan, but just 14 years until, obviously humanity would be extinct or whatever, like obviously that doesn't necessarily happen. But I do think, what Beale said was true, right? Like he knows that this is the direction that it's going in. Like maybe he didn't have the exact year, right? But I think he knows that this is where it's going overall. And so it would be cool, to look at it and be like, well, Rick, like he did sort of, I guess, the right thing for himself because he wanted to be back with his family. But I think to look at that situation and be like, well, he shouldn't have killed him. And what he did technically sort of started something here. And Beale was actually going to, help prevent a lot of this from happening, right? Because there's always, like, that's the one thing with The Walking Dead. There's always a gray area with everything, right? Like that's just sort of what they've always established in terms of the story. There's a lot of like debate about right and wrong. And I do think with Beale, like there's no way he was just wrong about everything. Like he's like this big, scary, evil villain. And, he's the head of, the military of this big organization called the CRM, and all of his information's wrong. That's not true. I think it will play a role at some point here. And so yeah, that episode, honestly, I might have to go back and rewatch that just to see, because I do think that a lot of Gimple's plans for a lot of this here was probably set up there. There was a lot of teases, I guess, at the future anyways, and I could see where they would go here anyways. And so yeah. Q&A, how do you think the reunion of Maggie and Rick would go, knowing that they were on rocky terms when Rick left? I think a lot of that stuff is probably just going to be ignored. Like, I kind of view it like, yeah, Maggie and Rick were sort of on, I guess, I don't even want to say they were on bad terms. I do think it was more Maggie and Michonne. Like, Maggie and Rick, like, I mean, I guess there was some disagreement there and a lot of that, at the hilltop, but I think Maggie and Michonne, there was a lot more actual fighting and arguing there, right? And because if you look at it literally, like after Rick died, like Maggie and Michonne just stopped talking to each other, and there was just like Maggie just kind of went off, and it was like, yeah, that definitely ended on bad terms, right? So I just think them seeing Rick again, I think is just, they're going to be so happy he's alive and everything. And I do think they're all going to forget about all of that, and everything's going to be good. Q&A, do you think it's possible by Dead City's timeline, Rick and Michonne just haven't gone home yet? I don't think so. I do think they're probably home, but do Maggie and Negan know about all of that? Maybe they know. Again, it's one of those things that I definitely am not the biggest fan of. Like, if Maggie and Negan have seen Rick already, that's very, very unfortunate. That is something that will be very, very frustrating, I think, as a fan, because it's just something that, I don't know, I've always wanted to see all their reactions to seeing him for the first time, right? But I mean, I guess we're still going to get that with Daryl, and then maybe Carol, I guess. Carol, maybe she knows that he's back, but she doesn't really necessarily know, because obviously Daryl Dixon is a lot closer to the Ones Who Lives timeline, right? So it depends. A lot of that really does depend. But in terms of Maggie and Negan, I mean, yeah, they could know that he's back already, and that part would be very, very frustrating. Honestly, as a fan, I'd be so disappointed with it. That's one of my issues with the Ones Who Live ending in the way it did, was that, they ended a lot of things like that. I think even with the timeline, like if you just put it at some point in the future, even after Dead City, then it just makes a lot of that stuff make a lot more sense. But I think they didn't do that because of the ages of Judith and RJ. And again, they really wanted to make this like a complete story here. Obviously, they want to come back and do more, and they are working on some sort of story right now, it seems like. But it's just, in terms of reuniting and sort of ending a lot of the stories from The Walking Dead, they really wanted to do that. That was a big goal for them. And I just think they didn't take into consideration a lot of the bigger stuff regarding the Walking Dead universe. And I just wonder if Gimple didn't really have a say in any of that. I wonder if he did want to do certain things, but then they were just like, no, we want to do this. We really want to do, all of this. And again, I just, man, I'm so disappointed by some aspects to the Ones Who Lives ending. And it's frustrating that it has to actually be that way. Overall, I'm so much more excited about Daryl Dixon. I think that show, even season 1 of that show, I think is a lot better than the Ones Who Live, at least as a complete story. Obviously, I think the Ones Who Live has really amazing moments in like episode 1 and episode 4 specifically, but I think Daryl Dixon, in terms of the overall story of it and just how everything is sort of flowing and how it makes sense, in terms of just the ending and like the excitement behind a lot of things, there's the pacing's really well done, and it's just a more exciting story, and so far anyways, they haven't disappointed me. And so the Ones Who Live, it was kind of like that in the beginning, but just where it went is, yeah, again, you can't end that story in 6 episodes, and they actually tried to, which I do think, by the way, that's why that they said that they were going to be coming back, because I think that they knew that they couldn't end this right away. But it's not necessarily the Rick and Michonne part. Like, I always knew that they were going to come back to reunite with like Daryl and everyone else, because obviously you need to have that. Like, you can't end this and not have that. It's the CRM part to it, which I guess technically is still around. I know that does make me feel better, but it is like, anyways. Q&A, what if the reason Maggie left the hilltop was actually because Rick/Michonne returned? If you remember from what was said in season 10, her and Maggie didn't have the best relationship, and maybe she felt guilty for being part of the reason Rick was gone for so many years. So when she found out that he returned and what happened, could you see her choosing to leave? This theory could be backed up by the fact that there are no old characters within the bricks. Well, I think that part to it has more to do with like the cast and all of that. I think they just wanted to have a new cast and just save money there, basically, just sort of focus on like 2 of the original characters, Maggie and Negan, introduce some bigger characters, like the Marshal and the Croat and whatnot. But other than that, just, focus on like a new cast and all of that. So in terms of, that being the reason, I could see that potentially being something that they could actually have happened so that because if you look at Maggie and Negan, like, would Maggie go run to see Rick and Michonne? Maybe she doesn't right away, because maybe she's kind of like, maybe she feels a little jealous and hurt. First of all, that, Michonne has her husband back, after she thought that he died. And, because obviously Maggie's not going to get that. But also because they left on bad terms as well, maybe she just kind of feels a little like, like maybe she knows that she will eventually see them, but she's just like, you know what, as of right now, I'm just going to focus on myself and Herschel, and I'll get around to that at some point. Negan, I could see him just being like, well, why would I go and see them? They probably don't care to see me at all. So I can just see a situation where maybe they know that they're around or something like that, but maybe they just kind of ignore it and they're just like, well, whatever, right? I could see that actually being something that does happen. And I think that would be really cool, because obviously some sort of reunion where you have to get everyone together again, and then we would see them all confront each other, and then Maggie would have to obviously talk about sort of how she's feeling with all of this, and then Negan would obviously, his reaction to seeing Rick again for the first time would be really incredible, right? So yeah, I could definitely see a way where that could actually be done really well. I'm actually really excited about that, because, in some way that's probably going to happen, right? Because that is sort of where the story is going next. I guess my worry right now is, please don't rush it, right? Which I don't think they're going to anymore, because I do think that the finale, there was a lot of, looking at the finale, it was very, very mixed. And it wasn't just like fans saying that. There was a lot of people reviewing it and posting articles saying that this was such a bad finale, this and that. And so I think, the mixed reviews of everyone sort of hating the finale or like loving the finale, I think is going to make them be like, well, sort of, what were like the main criticisms here, right? Obviously ending the CRM arc too soon. Well, maybe that was more of a story thing and they already knew that was going to happen. Well, maybe they can tweak stuff here and there to make the CRM arc sort of continue on, right? And like other stories or whatever. That's something they could do there. But another thing was sort of them rushing the story. And again, I think it has to do with the fact that it is 6 episodes. That is such a small amount of episodes for The Walking Dead. 8 episodes would really honestly be perfect. If you wanted to do 10, cool, but 8 episodes I think would be perfect, because you just need an extra episode or two to sort of flesh out certain things that they're not doing right now. So I think that would be really incredible. But anyways, would you rather an animated version of the Walking Dead comics to be adapted or to have Carl live? Oh man, that's such a hard thing to say, because obviously with Carl being gone, if Carl was still alive right now, would he be very beneficial to the story? Yeah, I do think so. Obviously, he'd be a big part of the story, but I also feel like they're going to, they would have a lot of issues there in terms of having Carl have his own spinoff and stuff, and like, what is he just never gonna mention or not mention, but go and see Judith? And would RJ even exist then? Because I know RJ, they introduced his character because of the fact that Carl was gone, right? That's why they did the big time jump and all that, right? Is to make Judith a lot older and stuff. So which I do really like overall. Like, I do like that time jump. It did really refresh in a lot of stuff on The Walking Dead. It was just a nice reset overall, right? But to have Carl back, yes, that would be amazing. But if I do like the state of The Walking Dead right now, and if I were to have an animated series, yeah, that'd be really incredible. I would really love that. An animated version of The Walking Dead comics, I think would be absolutely incredible. Q&A, in a fight between Merle and Simon, who do you think would win? Definitely Simon, I think. Q&A, do you think we can see Dante in Dead City at some point and have him be Maggie's new potential love interest like in the comics? I'm pretty sure Dante was a character already in The Walking Dead in season 10, right? And he just had a totally different arc because he was connected with the Whispers and was a spy. So yeah, and he died, I believe, by Father Gabriel, right? So I don't think they would ever do that. But in terms of Maggie having another, love interest at some point in the future, I guess it is definitely possible. I think that is a place that you could go with her at some point. But I think as of now, the main focus should be, her trying to live her life, not so mad at Negan. And not even like mad at him, because I don't think she really is anymore. She's definitely gotten over a lot of that. We saw that in The Walking Dead at the very end, right? But it's just that she's sort of living by that still. And he's still having an effect on her, right? And it's hurting her relationship with Herschel. And that's why, he's getting very angry about a lot of stuff. And so I think that should be the main focus right now with Maggie, is just, being a mother to Herschel right now. But Q&A, do you think we could get a flashback of the downfall of New York City like they did with Isabel and Paris? Ooh, that would be so cool. Yeah, totally. I think we could definitely get that at some point in season 2 because they're going to be there a lot, right? So yeah, I can definitely see that. Q&A, I don't know how hard it would be, but have you ever thought about trying to interview current or former Walking Dead universe members, like cast members? I feel like you'd have some really good questions that they don't get asked in interviews. Well, I've had some chances to actually do that, definitely. That was a couple of years ago and I turned a lot of it down. A lot of it was just more personal stuff for me as to why I turned all of that down. And I really do regret it now just because obviously I haven't gotten like a lot of offers to do any of that in like 2 years now or something like that. So it's definitely been a while, but yeah, definitely if I had those opportunities again, I would do it for sure. Like definitely for sure. And I guess I could probably try to reach out. I think that would be kind of interesting. It would be a really cool thing to do, but yeah, anyways. Q&A, there is a set photo from Dead City Season 2 that shows Fear the Walking Dead Season 8 props. Do you think that we could see someone from Fear the Walking Dead? For sure, it could be someone like Sherry and Dwight. Yeah, I talked about that already. I do think that it's going to be something that is probably set up depending on what the props are, right? I could see it being set up. Do I think those characters are going to appear in season 2? I don't think so. I think that maybe it's sort of set up, right? Like you got to remember with The Ones Who Live, that was very, very different than Dead City and Daryl Dixon, right? Like these shows are going to be continuing on for like a couple of more seasons. I do believe that, they're aiming for like season 4 or 5, then we'll kind of see from there. That means that they're able to actually tell more stories like this, right? And that was the whole thing with The Ones Who Live, was like reading into a lot of stuff and like, does this mean that or that? And it was always sort of based on the idea that, we could get more than one season, which it does seem like it is a possibility, but I am leaning more towards, I think Denai Guerrera and Scott Gimple are working on a new story right now that would probably be a new series, just based off of their comments and all of that. It looks like they're working on a new story for Rick and Michonne to return, but I don't think it's going to be a season 2. It's probably going to be a new series. That's my guess. Q&A, of the main spinoff series, who's your favorite leading man and woman? A, Rick and Michonne. B, Negan and Maggie. Or a little unfair since Melissa McBride missed season 1 of Daryl Dixon, but C, Daryl and Carol, and why? Man, that's so hard to actually choose because I really like all character pairings in general. They all sort of bring something very unique. Rick and Michonne, obviously it's Rick and Michonne, so that's almost going to be like my first choice, right? But, you look at Negan and Maggie, there's such a complex relationship there that it's very fun to talk about. There's a lot of, really interesting, fun stories there. So I also kind of want to pick them as well. But Daryl and Carol are obviously really amazing. So I can't really choose at all. Honestly, it's very hard for me to choose. I think as of, the story for all of the characters, I'm more excited about Daryl and Carol's story right now, just because I think that their story is going to be very exciting with all of the variant walkers and all of that. So I'd probably have to lean more there. But anyways, I'm going to leave it here. There was a lot of questions here that I didn't get to, but yeah, this video is getting very long here, so I sort of had to skim through a lot of it. But I did notice that there was actually a lot of follow-up questions, so I'll probably get around to answering a lot of that. And yeah, so definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.